Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Everybody hear ye, hear ye. Anita and I are recording this not on a Sunday night.
So I don't hate everybody.
How are you feeling?
I'm telling you what, other days are better than Sundays. My kids are at school, so I'm like living it up.
Can we talk about our adventure yesterday? Please.
We better. I mean, I feel like you can't not say anything about what happened.
Tell the people.
So I was at work yesterday and I get this text from Mel and she shows me a picture of some Care Bear suits. And she was like, Anita, do we need these? And so my answer was, yeah. So after work, she brought them over and we donned our Care Bear suits and went and got tacos.
It's true. They were rompers. I'd never seen a onesie romper in Care Bear form before. Anita was Grumpy Bear and I was Cheer Bear.
Which is kind of appropriate.
Yeah. Especially on Sundays, which today is not.
I'm wearing that to church on Sunday.
You're going to get in trouble because it is above the knee.
It's way above the knee, guys. They were a little bit risque for my taste.
I love that was risque. But
know.
you know what? You have great legs because you're a marathon runner and a biker. So no one feels bad for you.
Okay, fine. They should feel bad for me for other reasons, though, like I'm a widow.
Can we talk about how when you're a widow, you kind of just don't care about anything? Mm-hmm. Which is why we had so much fun.
It was really fun. And the other people in the restaurant were kind of like, what? But there was a little kid who wanted to be our friend.
So it was fun. We have had a couple adventures this week. We also rode bikes.
Mm-hmm. Also good times, good times.
Yeah. So things are looking up because it's not Sunday. So everyone probably has a crappy Sunday, right? I know that widows hate weekends. Weekends are hard. I remember, like, especially in the first, like, few years, like, Sundays were the worst because that's when everybody is not working and everybody is with their families. And the widows are like, well, now everything's interrupted and my life is hard. So,
yeah,
hard times.
So today, though, is supposed to be a day that Jason is doing a big bike race, and it's a relay, and his whole friend group always used to do it. So today's always a day where I'm I play the should game. He should be here. He should be with his friends. I hate the should game.
Stop shoulding.
I know. It's a different kind of shoulding, though, because it's not I should be doing it. It's why is he dead?
You're living in the shoulder. It's when the should hit the fan.
Yeah, the should. So you guys may have noticed that we didn't have a Widowsode last week, and that is because we are taking the time that we make Widowsodes to prepare for Camp Widow. So
yes.
we might be a little bit reclusive. What's the word, Mel?
Well, here's the deal. We're trying to get 2 out before we go to Camp Widow. So we will still have our weekly Monday released interview episode with a guest. And this coming Thursday, we will have a Widowsode. Then the next week, it will just be the Monday so that we can prep. Then we're going to have one the following week. And then it's Camp Widow. So this is just so we can get our head together, because it's a lot to prep for something where you can't edit it after.
Yeah, we're so excited to meet a bunch of you at Camp Widow. So hopefully some of y'all are coming. We know some of you are, but let us know.
If you're coming, or you have just decided to come, or you're on the fence about coming, will you email us or post in the Widow Wives Club or comment on Instagram or message us? Because we really would love to see you guys when you are there. And if you're on the fence, we feel you. But let us know. Maybe it won't be so bad after all. We can help talk you into it or out of it. I don't know.
Hey, come join us in the Widow Wives Club if you happen to be a widow, widower, or somebody who's lost their partner. We have a really supportive group. It's on Facebook. It's a private group. We vet everybody who's in there so that you know that you belong. Just make sure when you submit your request that you submit all of the information that's asked for, or we won't let you in.
Nope.
Really.
Yep. Because we don't really have feelings, so...
I have feelings about that. It makes me sad.
I know we actually do have feelings. I do have feelings about that. Just not about wearing Care Bear suits to taco shops and caring what people think.
If you want to keep the podcast going, you can check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN. If you want to send us to the taco shop in Care Bear suits or whatever Mel comes up with, then visit
buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
One of the benefits of being a patron is that you get a shout out in the episode at a certain level and up. So we're going to do our shout out now.
And that starts at the Widow Bestie and up.
First, we're going to shout out to our secret dead husband. And to her we say, and to all of you, oops, I'm a widow again.
No, what if that? No, we do know some people where they've been widowed twice. But that was really
so
funny.
Rude. Okay.
Next is Constance Dahlbach.
David Kelly.
The tour guide from the UK. Don Satterwhite.
Gail Paxton.
Ivan the Meisner.
Kat.
Krista Wait. Hey, Krista, have you been having 8 million migraines this week? I have.
Amy.
And Amy Sapp.
Ashley Hahn.
Christina Shiflett.
Danielle Katterberg.
Not a Debbie Downer.
Dennis the Saxophone Brazzo.
Ooh, Jenny the Taylor.
Jennifer Brown. I have a neighbor named Jennifer Brown, by the way. It's not you. I don't think.
Dang it. Jenny
I
Wang.
would know. Kathy Murray.
Spooky Scary Stromberg.
Leslie Webb.
Missy Schubertian Symphony No. 2.
Woo woo. Rachel Barbosa.
Sarah Morris.
Sylvia. Mel's mom, Shore.
She totally understands why I wear Care Bear onesies.
I don't think she does.
She doesn't even question it. Well,
I think she's just come to accept it.
This is normal. And Mel has never changed since she's been 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The Winehouse Karen Cornejo, the world traveler.
Vicky Spit, the widow of Kirchhoff.
Hoff, yes. Anna Tracy.
Christina Scambato.
Christine Anderson.
Cindy Raynaud. Welcome.
Mindy Holmgren.
Dawn Barber.
Debbie Fells.
Diana Becker.
Emily Thornton.
Emily Toledo.
Aaron Posick.
Gabe Lozano.
Ian Cini.
Ileana Bell Ruiz.
Jackie.
My mom, who's on a plane.
Oh, where are they going?
San Antonio.
Ooh, I hope you go to Mi Tierres. Or
Well, I'll
Tiere.
tell 'em.
Mi Tiere. Jenny Barrow.
Jocelyn Milo.
Fancy Lady Kirsch.
Karina Jacobo.
Katie Radcliffe.
Kara Scara.
Lori Farrington.
Marie Hoffman.
Marjorie Lewis.
Mary McGowan.
Peter Rukavina.
Sarah Kennedy.
Our cruise director. Shannon Helm.
Sunshine the Haven.
Tammy the Schwartz.
Tara Wallace.
Val the packer of all the suitcases.
Next we have AstroTurf Wendy.
That's the end.
Oh, thank you everybody who is one of our patrons. We really are so humbled by your support. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Now, there is a new development that we have talked about in the Widow Wives Club, in our newsletter, and I think maybe briefly on last week's first part of the podcast. We are starting to facilitate in-person meetups in your area. We have gotten great reception with people reaching out saying that they would like to facilitate. So if this is you, please email us and we will get you connected. We're working on getting a website up where we have contact information and information about the hangs. So we're in phase 1.2, moving towards phase 2, which would be everything's up and running. So please let us know. Our email is widowwedonow@gmail.com.
It's going to be great, guys.
Yeah.
Shall we get to the episode?
Yes.
Let's do it. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're two Care Bears. I'm Grumpy Bear.
All the time. Except not right now.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm Cheer Bear, Mel Shore.
And we're two young widows. Just trying to figure out
How to Care Bear stare.
widow we do now.
This episode is brought to you by the Meisner Family Foundation in memory of Elizabeth Meisner.
Mel,
What?
are you ready to have our fabulous guest introduced to us today?
Yeah, because she's amazing and has her life all together, like we just talked about
got it
before we hit record.
Figured out. And I just found out that this is exclusive access to her.
I feel so fancy right now.
I know.
How did we get so lucky?
I think she got confused. She didn't know what she was saying yes to.
You thought you were going to be on Oprah, but I'm sorry, it's me and Anita.
I think we're the opposite of Oprah, like in every single way.
That's why it was a joke. Did you get the joke, Anita?
I know, but like super opposite. Completely different experience. Let's introduce our guest. Hello, this is Janice Bell. Hi, Janice.
Hi.
Do you go by Janice all the time? Do you do Jan or any other like nicknames?
Well, my husband would call me Jan.
Dang him.
But no, mostly everybody calls me Janice, but I don't mind if people call me Jan. People just don't do it.
What about Janice? Does anybody call you Janice?
That's really, really quite funny you ask. Because no, that never happened until we moved to Texas. And when we lived in Texas, people pronounced my name that way often, so often that it was kind of like quite a running joke for many years.
That's funny. I thought your name was Janice.
Actually, it's like, it must be an American thing or a more Southern American thing. I don't know. But you guys are in Utah, right?
Yeah, so it makes no sense.
That's so funny. Like here, a name would never be that. And it would be like what, you're mixing up like Janice and Denise or something? Like,
where did you live before Texas?
Okay, well, I am from Nova Scotia, Canada. It's the east coast of Canada. right up above Maine there. And that's where I am now. That's where I was born. That's where I live. And then Chris and I, my husband, we did quite a bit of traveling together. And we met in university. We were both geologists.
What? No.
Yes. Yes, why?
That's so cool.
Well, where you guys live is really cool because you were just at Powell Lake too, weren't you, Mel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris and I went there and loved it and took a tour of the dam and all that stuff. And then kept driving all up through, Zion and Bryce Canyon. That's all above there, right? And over to Colorado. It was like probably the most fantastic scenic trip I've ever taken.
Are you in Halifax?
I live, just outside Halifax. I live close to Peggy's Cove, if anybody's familiar with the famous lighthouse of Peggy's Cove. It's like what tourists
I want
do.
to be familiar with it.
Well, if you ever came here, you would know it was one of the first tourist things you had to do. I could be wrong, but I think it might be the most photographed lighthouse in the world. Like somebody might prove me wrong, but anyways.
So did you meet Chris in Nova Scotia?
In university, in Halifax.
In geology school?
Yes.
You guys were like looking at rocks and gems.
Even better.
Like, we're in love.
When I was in first year geology, he was the teaching assistant.
Oh.
So I got really good marks and did really well in that class. And we didn't start dating then, but I think it was about 2 years. And then we, finally really started dating. And he graduated at the end of my first year. So I'd only see him in passing and through friends. But we came back together and we worked together ever since. So we were in Northern Canada in some pretty unique, like fly in, fly out camps, and we did all kinds of wild stuff. And then we went to rural Pennsylvania for a few years. And we switched over from looking for uranium and gold to natural gas and worked on the drilling rigs in northern Pennsylvania. And then when we got tired of that, we moved down to Houston. And then we decided it was time to move home and be close to our families and start our own family.
Okay, so you guys are like Indiana Jones, like the married couple. I know he was looking for artifacts. I know it's different, but just like the whole digging and like looking, I don't know. I probably have the wrong vision of geology.
I don't know. Maybe everybody grieves their past life when they are, because of all the cool things that you do with your partner. But I mean, like we had a lifetime of adventure in, I don't know, 13, 14 years that we were together. We did amazing things. And it's like all of that's gone. Like half of those memories and everything that you shared are gone.
When did you and Chris first meet? What was the year?
September 2003. Living away, we planned a wedding back home in Nova Scotia, I think like 3 times. And it just was too hard to plan from away. So we would keep postponing it. Or there was one year we hired a wedding planner, then she canceled on us. Then another year, the venue canceled on us. And we were just forget this, it wasn't working and it wasn't really important to us to get married. So that wasn't working out. And after we had moved home, I was pregnant and we said, well, if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. So we eloped and we had seen pretty much all of the US at that point, except for the West Coast. So we flew into LA, drove up the coast. We got married in Big Sur and then flew home from Seattle. So it was kind of like the icing of the cake, checked off the rest of the boxes on our US touring travel, and got married and had a baby.
Wow, you guys lived an adventurous life. That's amazing that you got to see so much and work together and have all those experiences.
Yeah, we really did live, work, travel, everything together. Yeah.
So what year did you guys have your first baby?
November 2015, my first son was born. Not without complications. It was pretty stressful, and I had to be resuscitated after that.
What happened?
Probably just, it was a dysfunctional labor, and things weren't going well at all. And they had thought that I had an amniotic embolism, but it turned out that I was like the research case of the hospital, with everybody coming to bother me every 15 minutes because like all the students coming to figure out, this mystery.
Which really helps.
Yeah.
things.
So, and in the end they said, oh, blood loss, So yeah, that was that. But it really I had a lot of recovery afterwards. And it took the fun out of a new baby. So I was looking forward to our second baby. My son was 8 months old, and I got pregnant again. On purpose. I thought we were just go big or go home.
Anita,
right?
she did it on purpose.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I know, I'm just stressed out for you right now. I'm just thinking of myself.
Go take a Xanax and I'll continue with her. Okay, bye.
I'll be right back. Okay, go ahead.
I don't regret it, but yeah, like what was I thinking? It was really tough period of time in my life. And then when I had her, my father-in-law was in the hospital on life support. So I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like not having this baby experience that I kind of thought after the first one. Then the second one, you thought it would be a little bit different. But, she was great, no problem with that labor. And then I got pregnant again. Right away. So I had...
You are a fertile myrtle, man.
Yeah, luckily. There didn't seem to be much trouble there. That's not a part of grief I understand or have experienced myself. And while I was 8 or 9 months pregnant, somewhere in between the two, with my third child, my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
You've never had a pregnancy that did not come with complications. And the third one, that was the complication.
I know. And it was like third time's a charm. Like there was death surrounding although I never said my father-in-law, he never actually died when they took him off life support. So
he got better.
I left that part out. But still, it was like there was... Yeah, it was like a joke, like you better not have any more babies, people die, kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, I kind of realized that myself.
You're a young mom with 2 kids and a third kid now that's a newborn, and your husband has terminal cancer. What kind of cancer did he have?
He had cholangiocarcinoma, which is cancer of the bile ducts within your liver or between your liver and your pancreas.
What led you guys to discover that he had cancer?
He had swelling in his legs and his abdomen so badly that he could not move. He could hardly move. And I was like, you have got to go to the doctor. Like, you've got to take time off work and you've got to get this figured out. And he was extremely uncomfortable. And it was still, weeks before we really knew what type of cancer he had, or, within 2 days, he had an ultrasound. And the doctor said, you have a few small spots on your liver. It might be cancer, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? And I do all my liver research about how the liver reheals itself and you can section a liver, and it's really quite an amazing thing. And, the liver transplants and all of that. We're going to be okay, right? And then Chris doesn't even really care about what his diagnosis is going to be. He's so uncomfortable with all this fluid on his abdomen that we're begging for help. And he finally gets to see an internist in the emergency room. And he had 17 liters of fluid drained off of his stomach, which is ascites. And he was in end stages of cancer. And the ultrasound actually had revealed, where we got the truth, that he had multiple tumors on his liver, and the largest was 18 centimeters.
Man, that's one of the tricky things about that type of cancer, though, is that it doesn't have a lot of symptoms in the beginning stages. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was never, it's not necessarily a terminal diagnosis, and you search for hope wherever you can get it. But there really isn't much hope. And that's even true for early diagnosed cases with small tumors. I mean, hopefully you can cut it out, but it just seems to be one of those cancers that you hear very few stories about people, that it doesn't come back. Even if you do get rid of it, it almost always seems to come back, which is really disheartening.
So it's an evil cancer.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, my husband wasn't technically, it depends who would classify it. If you're going to say based on the size of it would be stage 4, but no, it hadn't metastasized anywhere in his body. It was just his whole liver was, and actually they believed that his liver that wasn't tumor was cirrhosed as well.
Was your oldest child about 3?
He had just turned 3. So 3, 1.5, and newborn. When I had my baby, my Mary, my youngest, so we were in the emergency room, and I was prepared, and I started asking all the hard questions. And I said, what do you mean by that? I can't remember what he said, but I think, no chance of survival. Is that what you are saying when you say that? And he said, correct. And I peed my pants and started throwing up. I probably threw up and peed my pants because of it, and I ended up being admitted to the hospital as well. Because my mother was there too. And I just, like, the wave of shock that came over me, like, it just, I'm going to cry, like, thinking about, like, those little moments of trauma, like, are just so powerful. And it's almost like, I don't know, you see them in the movies, but to experience those feelings where you just drop to the floor. I don't know what else to say, those feelings. But so I was pregnant, and I ended up delivering early, a few weeks early. And they were actually offering induction to me because Chris had so many procedures at this point. I was in the hospital with Chris on Friday. I went into labor naturally on Saturday. I came home on Sunday, and I was back in the hospital with Chris on Monday with a baby in my arm.
I feel like managing cancer, and this might be like a really weird comparison, but it's almost like a newborn baby. Like, it takes so much time and effort. And so you have a newborn baby, and then you're having to manage appointments and procedures and him feeling ill and not being able to do things. And so it's almost like you had 2 newborn babies, but one who was a very giant newborn baby.
Plus a 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old, and a 3-year-old.
And we all know that 1.5 and 3-year-olds are super easy to manage. Like, they're very cooperative. They do everything you say. They're like super good about eating and taking care of their own messes. So, I mean, I don't know what was so hard. I mean, they're very self-sufficient.
So what was your family support like? How did you manage that next little while?
I don't know. And I had great family support. My mom essentially moved in with me. And my sister was around a lot. She was still in school trying to finish her degree, and she was having exams put off to be with me and take care of my kids. And my trauma in grief is not even from Chris dying. It was from having to take care of 3 children and a husband with pretty serious cancer. And do that. I don't know. And yeah, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I got through it. I don't know how everybody involved got through it, really, because like my household was just not a nice place to be. The energy was awful. You know, somebody with terminal cancer, their mood changes a lot. They're in pain. They're scared. And they've got 3 kids climbing on them, and they don't want that. Just trying to manage. It's like the world is expecting you to do something that's impossible, and you still have to do it. And I was also determined that I would do everything I could to save Chris's life. So once the kids and everybody was in bed, I would get up and I would spend all night long on the computer. And I read every research paper I could get my hands on. And it's all I did. I don't think I slept for 6 months. Literally, I really just, it was such a relief when he died to not have that weight of having to save him on my shoulders. Because you could never stop. If you took a break or took one night off, you're not trying your hardest. You know, like I had to spend every moment I could. You know, I breastfed all my children. I'd be lying awake at night, breastfeeding my baby and earning my degree in cholangiocarcinoma. I swear I knew more than the oncologist by the time I was done. And it paid off because I found clinical trials that he could participate in based on the mutations of the genomic mutations in his cancer. And it was all because of the work that I had done, not the oncologist. So when you're getting tiny little wins like that, it's very frustrating and angry. And I didn't trust the oncologist. He wrote him off from day one. I'll never forget. He said, "Oh yeah, this isn't my first rodeo," you know, implying he knew how it was going to end. But you can't, I don't know. Maybe some people can just accept that, and I almost wish that I could have not put myself through those months of what I did of trying to, I don't know, learn everything or contact every person, extend, like I had to go down every road and exhaust every option.
That's such a burden. And I think it's interesting that you expressed that you felt relief when he died, because I think a lot of people would try and hide that feeling of a relief.
I don't know if I showed that feeling. I'm not sure if I was open about it, but I can remember going that night back to where we were staying, because of course Chris didn't die while we were at home. He had to make things complicated. But and thinking, wow, that's the first time I think I've slept. I wasn't worrying. Like, you weren't up. Every noise, did he stop breathing? It was a constant state of panic and adrenaline. And I still don't think my body has actually come down off of that. I'm still like struggling through that feeling of adrenaline rush. But it was the first time where I could just like, like
not have to be hyper vigilant.
And I'm sure it wasn't just a straight feeling of relief. I'm sure there was so many other feelings that went in with that. You're devastated at the same time, but that you could recognize, wow, that now that it's done and I can't affect this anymore.
I could stop worrying about him dying. It was like, okay, now we move into, survival mode or whatever it was just 2 years for me. I still don't know what I'm doing or what I'm going to do or where I'm going, or I have no plan.
It's amazing that you're breathing still and showing up here and talking to us. With that trauma, what have you decided to share with the world?
Not much of it, to be honest. I found that from the time that Chris was diagnosed, I've never written in my life, really, never considered myself, never journaled, never really kept a diary. It was just not my style of coping with things, I guess. You know what? I didn't know how to cope with anything. And that's what I turned to immediately. I'd pick up my phone and go to the notes app and I would just type and write. And I feel that it's unfortunate that while Chris was sick, that I didn't have more time, because I think some really powerful writing would have come out of those days. Because there was so much that just kept pouring out of me.
Girl, you needed like 36 more hours in each of those days.
Or 36 more arms to hold the babies and write.
Both. 36 more hours, 36 more days, 3 less children, 1 less husband, and you would have been golden.
Yeah.
But you did start writing after, correct?
I did write before. I've just never shared any of it. And it's really quite powerful. And I'm at the point now, though, that I won't even go back and read it. I won't even read stuff that I've written, a year ago now. I don't know. I don't want to read my writing or what my thoughts were in those moments. But yeah, it was about this. It was quite shortly, 2 months or so after Chris died, I initially started a blog, and I still have the blog, but I don't, I tend to put writing on Instagram a bit more frequently now. It's easier. And that's where all my widow sisters are, and this amazing community. But I'd never had an Instagram account. I never posted pictures or publicly on Facebook or anything. I was so scared to hit post on my first Instagram post. And I felt so old because the number of things I had to Google on how to work social media. But I did. And then I kind of just kept writing.
I'm not a journal writer either. Like you were saying, that was never your way of being consistent. And like a lot of widows, I did find healing in writing on a blog, and I had done some of that too. And when you're saying you don't go back and read what you wrote, totally there with you. And I think that's fine. That is part of your healing, because you got it out and it's out there, and it can help somebody that's maybe a few steps behind you, but you're also still able to leave that on the page and then move on to the next thing. I don't even know how linear that process needs to be either. So
mine hasn't been. That's the thing. You have plans, and then I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I just share. And at this point, the purpose of sharing is the connections that I've made. I mean, and initially it was always, I started with the blog with the intention of, I needed to help people who were in the young cancer caregiver role. It wasn't even about widowhood. It was those 6 months that Chris was sick. I was desperate. and I couldn't find anybody else like me. I couldn't. We would go to chemo and I'd be there. I'd be holding a newborn baby and I would search every time for somebody that wasn't like, I don't know, 3 decades older than us, and I went to like a few support groups and it was all people in their 50s and 60s who were taking care of their elderly parents with cancer. And it was just like where I would search, I would Google, like I couldn't find anybody like me. And I felt like I needed to find somebody like me so that I could believe that what was happening to me was true. Like, I'm about to have a baby. My husband has cancer. This is so horrible. This isn't true. This can't be real. And I truly believed it wasn't real. And I would wake up every day and be like, am I allowed to swear shit? Like this is actually my life. And that's how it was I didn't get out of bed after Chris was diagnosed for 3 weeks. And I couldn't even talk to my kids. My mom was like, I don't know. I was just begging. I was going to like healthcare professionals, trying to get mental health help, like make it stop. Make this stop. Like this cycle of like, this isn't real. This isn't really happening. And it felt like if I could find somebody else going through the same thing, it would be like, yep, this stuff, like this really crappy stuff does happen. And it could, I don't know, I wouldn't feel so alone in it, I guess.
Speaking of more crappy stuff, do you have another part to your story?
Yeah.
Hold on, everyone. Here we go.
Maybe everybody should sit down, stop driving.
First, go get a snack so you have blood sugar that can deal with this. Okay, go.
18 months after my husband died from cancer, I received my cancer diagnosis. It just didn't really seem like that could be true either, but it was.
It seems like you should demand a refund. Who can we talk to?
Yeah.
Oprah.
Oh, she probably could refund you.
I had a very frustrating time getting a diagnosis because I was told repeatedly that I had anxiety. And
you can have anxiety and have cancer,
by
the way.
Yeah. It got to the point that I called 911 and took myself to the hospital in an ambulance because nobody would listen to me. And at the hospital, I was told there was nothing wrong with me and not to come back, that I had health anxiety and that my husband died of cancer. You do not have cancer. And finally, I got somebody, I was bleeding vaginally. I was passing huge amounts of blood, but was told by a number of people that I probably just needed an IUD to regulate my hormones. And I've been through a lot of stress and it was nothing. The bleeding was normal, but the bleeding I was having was not normal. It was quite severe.
Do you ever want to say to people like, okay, I have been a girl my whole life, and I'm pretty sure that I'm familiar with how this is supposed to work?
I don't know. I have never had like a regular bleeding between periods or anything. Maybe it's normal for some people, but this is not my normal.
Right.
Is the thing. I got a doctor. I asked for an ultrasound at the hospital and they, no, we cannot give you an ultrasound. There's nothing wrong with you. Go home. Finally, I got a new doctor who was amazing. I had an ultrasound in 2 days and I found out there was once again, a small spot. I don't know, like, is this how they like to break news to people or something like that? I ended up, before I saw an oncologist, I had pieces of tumor falling out of me. And I was diagnosed with advanced cervical cancer. So I had all my paps I had 3 babies in the last 5 years, multiple vaginal exams, even a vaginal exam in like a pelvic exam in the hospital, like I don't know what that was, a month prior, nothing wrong. And I had a 9 by 7 centimeter tumor on my cervix. So, and that's very large. Most people with cervical cancer like have cancerous cells and they just are able to scrape those off or cut them off. And then beyond that, if you have a tumor that's less than 4 centimeters, you can have a hysterectomy. But mine was far too big to have a hysterectomy. So I, had multiple more scans and found out that it had not spread. Thankfully, that was like one of the happiest days of my life because I figured, out of everything that's happened, there's never good news in my life. And so that was great. And I did 5 rounds of chemo, 25 rounds of external radiation, and 4 rounds of internal radiation. I completed that.
That sounds like a party.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you bought yourself a drink afterwards.
So I finished that at the start of the summer, and I kind of spent the summer recuperating a bit, and I'm starting now to feel more normal. I'm working on, I went for the longest walk that I have in a long time today, actually. I'm really trying to, when school ended, I couldn't walk to the end of my driveway to get my son from the school bus. And I've just been working hard to get my energy back. And I'm expecting all clear scans, but I don't have those until the end of September. So that's where I stand now.
I feel like you haven't had a chance to
breathe
really
or grieve.
Yeah, catch
break
either.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you actively trying to do to deal with all this trauma? Because this is like, your story is kind of like you were a prisoner of war for 6 months, and then you had a little, even a reprieve because you're dealing with that really heavy grief and just trying to figure out what life is, and then you are thrown back into that. You're back in the cancer world. You're having to visit the hospital,
the same nurses, the same rooms, all of that stuff, which I never planned to go back to. Was pretty surreal, to be sitting in all of those same places, like 2 years later, pretty much exactly from when he was. To go in and sit into the same chemo chair, like that pictures of him sitting in, holding our baby, is just, what is this?
I have a question. Did your second doctor call your first doctor and say, by the way, this was cancer, not anxiety? Please tell me yes.
No.
Call Oprah. We need Oprah to fix this too.
I got 3 blood transfusions actually, and that made the chest pain and the heart palpitations much better. And I was like, see, it wasn't anxiety. I don't need any more anxiety meds. I just kept being prescribed anxiety meds. An odd thing that I found, though, like rolling in this cancer community too a little bit, is that I don't really consider myself to be part of the cancer community as much as the widow community. I am still in grief. And I'd be, be in a Facebook group or a cancer support group, and this is the worst thing that's ever happened to these people. And they're like losing their mind. And I'm just like, yeah, I know. I've been telling you for 4 months I had cancer. I know I have cancer. The first thing I ask is, the chemo you're offering, is it palliative? I wasn't even fazed by it, almost. Like, yeah, there's the moments where you're like, what is going on? What is this life? But I'm still grieving, and I've been through so much worse. And watching somebody else go through cancer is a little bit different than other than having to revisit so many of these traumatic places, I don't know, for lack of better words, I want to say my cancer wasn't a big deal. You're just kind of like, whatever, here's another roadblock, let's get through it.
It was more of an inconvenience than it was like a world-rocking experience, maybe. Here's a question for you. So after Jason died, I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer a week after. And thyroid cancer, like if you're going to get cancer, that's the cancer to get, right? But the thing that was so difficult for me was that I had some serious choices to make. And the person who I needed to talk to about those choices was not there. I mean, it was like, do we go nuclear? Do we go... And just that thought of, if I make the wrong choice, my kids are orphans. And I'm trying to make this decision with a brain that is off. It's offline. It's off my rocker. So I wonder if you had some of those same experiences, or maybe they were different because it was 18 months apart. So maybe your brain was a little bit better at thinking, or you were a little more used to not having Chris to talk to and to bounce ideas off of.
I didn't really have any decisions to make. Other than was I going to do it or not do it? And I mean, yes, I felt like it was easy to go through it all a second time because I already knew all the questions to ask. I already knew I knew the deal. I knew the cancer deal. I know what getting chemo is going to be like. I think the first time you go through the cancer, there's so much to figure out. And it's like, it's a blurry world in itself, like being in a part of that. And I was just like, I've already been here, got the t-shirt. Let's just walk through it again. I think that made it.
Did you put your t-shirt back on?
Yeah.
So that you knew?
Yeah, exactly. I did.
That's a good point, though, that you had already kind of navigated some of those feelings before and some of those like practical
and all those questions. Like we had already been to all the support. I don't know. There just was so many things to figure out the first time through that I can't even give you a good example right now, but like where to go to get the 50% off parking ticket, or that those even exist. Little things like that, that there are those supports. Like I was going to the hospital 5 days a week when I was getting radiation, and it was a lot.
I wanted to ask you this question because I know a lot of people listening to your story might also feel void of hope and think that there's no purpose for living, or they keep getting knocked down and they're like, why do I have to keep starting over? Or maybe they're coming to that point in their mind where they're like, I don't know how I can keep going. You have lived so many things, so much trauma, with no reprieve. If you were speaking to somebody that was in a position where they didn't think there was any hope, what would you say to them as somebody who's lived through this?
You can be honest.
Is there such a thing as hope when you keep getting knocked down?
Well, that's what I was just saying. It's so discouraging because I just get going again and then something else seems to knock me down. And honestly, I don't know what hope is. I don't know what hope is. I know that when Chris was sick, the only way for me to go on was to desperately search to find some tiny thread of hope to hang on to, because I couldn't go on unless there was some sort of hope.
I think you have precedents for feeling those feelings. Have you done counseling? Have you done EMDR? I'm just you need some EMDR, lady.
I have been
1,000 sessions.
Maybe I should try EMDR.
I think you should. I'm not an expert.
I have tried
anything.
Counseling, therapy, a few times. So where I live, I think our healthcare systems are in a little bit of a crisis, and mental health even more so. And the help that I've gotten, I think, has been a little bit pathetic. The wait to get the help is pathetic. The fact that it's not available. And I've repeatedly tried and tried and tried. And I don't know, maybe it's just not for me, or maybe what I'm getting sucks. But I'm at the point where I'm almost giving up, because it's like, I don't want to tell this story anymore. The best support that I've had is other widows. That's it. I swear I have PTSD.
You do. You absolutely do. No questions. Zero questions.
It's what's used for PTSD treatment. It's not like traditional like talk therapy where it's like, let's talk about your past and relive it. Like, it will get it out of where it is stored in your body and get it out enough that you reprocess and it reintegrates. If you have access to that ever, or if there are like, I don't know if you have like nonprofits in Canada that would provide that, or sometimes through I know that somebody mentioned like, at least in the States, like there's like Catholic services or whatever, that any religion usually has like access to those things. I mean, even if you just had like several sessions to kind of get it going, you might notice a difference. And it just helps like get it out of your cells and like reprogram.
It's finally starting to get a little better, but the way I've described how I feel is like, somebody scares you and you get that adrenaline rush and you're just like, you know, and it's like, it's 2 years later, I can't get that feeling out of my chest. Like that anxious, I don't know. It's like, it's awful.
You're in a hypervigilant state still.
And this is when I explain it, like, it took my feelings from feeling like a pokey thorn to a pebble. Like, it was still there, but it was like easier to carry and it didn't feel as traumatic. So, and I'm just telling you, if you have to circumvent and find a different way to do it, I mean, even just like the online counseling things, we have lots of friends who have done that. Mel does online counseling. They have financial aid.
And I know like our friend, her therapist has been doing EMDR online. Like some therapists
online
don't,
yeah,
but some do, because it's just about like engaging each hemisphere. And so they'll just instruct you what to do. So yeah, it's like a lifesaver.
And the other thing is that, and Mel and I talk about this like all the time, and that is that like the therapy world, they're grief stupid. It's hard to find a therapist who actually knows anything about grief. When you go to a therapist, they're like, the 5 stages of grief. And you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, I was going to say a different word, but I didn't want to say in front of the child. Anyway, so yeah. And I can also understand just like, even like a centimeter barrier. And you're like, nope, I can't even get over that barrier. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm out because you just have like too many other things.
Okay, Anita.
Most important question.
It's a cheese question. I don't know the answer.
What? You don't know this answer? You had time to prepare for this one.
I know, but like, it's like, well, it's not though. It's like
easy cheese.
It's
Velveeta.
It feels like there's a lot of pressure behind this question.
There's really not.
There's so many different types. I was gonna say goat cheese. But then it's like, that's a big commitment in one direction. What about like the sharp cheddars? You know?
You know what? You've earned multiple categories for what you've been through, whatever you want to say.
I love goat cheese. Here's the thing, Janice, please do not let this be a part of your stress. Like, you have enough stress. So if this question stresses you out, we rescind the question and you don't have to answer it.
I think we probably just came up with this question because we were like, our brain went squirrel and we started asking about cheese. There's like no reason behind it other than,
well, everybody loves cheese
we
though,
just
don't
like
they?
cheese.
It's fun.
Actually, our friend who's a widow by the same cancer that Chris had does not like cheese or eat cheese. So
I guess if you're like lactose intolerant. But
we have a few vegan friends too.
Or brie is really good. Like, I really like the really soft cheeses, or like a really sharp, like a yummy, good cheddar.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Janice. I feel like your story today has been a little bit different than others, and I think that it will resonate with other people too. Because I think a lot of people try and get to the end And you are still in the middle. Not because you want to be, but that's just what life has dealt you.
Yeah, thank you for keeping it real. And this is what it's like, everybody. It's not just somebody dies and then all of a sudden everything's fine. It's like we are in the middle, and Janice is definitely in the middle, showing us what it's all like. So, sucks. I'm so sorry.
Prolonged middle.
And that doesn't do anything to help you. But thank you for being here.
I think having somebody listen to your story is always a help, and connecting with more people. The recognition that I am in the middle, because I think I forget that I am in the middle, and I feel like I should be more through it than I am, maybe, or that, like, not to compare yourself. Well, we all know, don't compare your grief to somebody else's, of course, but it's like, well, these people are doing this at 2 years out or whatever, but I still feel like I am in the middle or the start, or haven't even started to get through the grief. I'm still like coming down from the trauma of the cancer and then my own cancer. I don't know. Yeah. My point was, it does help to recognize that I am in the middle. That's probably crinkly loud.
Absolutely. We hope everybody has enjoyed listening to Janice's story. You can find her on Instagram. What's your Instagram name?
Another Strong Widow.
Remember to check out the Widow Wives Club on Facebook. If you're a widow, widower, or somebody who has lost their partner, just make sure you answer all the questions. If you want to check out our Patreon and help keep the podcast going, it's patreon.com/WWDN. If you want to send us to go get some tacos,
it's buymeacoffee.com/widow we do now.
Until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Janice.
And we're just two young widows and one who's smack in the middle. And we're trying to figure out,
Widow we do now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.